just finished his 2 days workshop. So we actually spoke about you in the beginning of the session. So just for others to know who Bidhan is, so he's a seasoned banker. He found that his early career shattered two core beliefs. That is the idea that money guarantees happiness and the illusion of achieving perfect life balance. So I don't want to speak much about, because we want to listen from Bidhan what he is doing today, and because we learned Upanishads from him. So let us know what more to Bidhan is, who Bidhan is, and maybe we have to question who is Bidhan. So something that we would like to know from you, Bidhan. So he is actually, he deep dives into human psychology and Upanishads, so which we have also benefited. I personally can tell after attending 2 levels of workshop that I've done with him. He's a fantastic facilitator. So I think people are waiting to listen to Bidhan's story. So over to you, Bidhan. Thank you so much for agreeing to come and join us.
So thank you so much, Ranjita, for having me here. And thank you so much. And good to see so many faces here, new faces. It's always good to see that and good to see the smile around. So, yeah, so Ranjita was saying, tell me something about yourself. We just concluded a session called Who Am I? So, yeah. If I were to just reflect in terms of how the life has been, and if so, suddenly Ranjita asked me, what is your life journey all about? So I said, it's serendipity. And to me, serendipity means that things happen. And at that point of time, you really don't understand why things are happening. But after a point of time, you look back and see, hey, there seems to be some sort of a story, some sort of a pattern that's panning out to be. So there are a lot of events that happens which really doesn't make sense. And why it happens. But the story unfolds as we go along. And my experience so far has been that if I am a little conscious about the story starts looking very interesting. This happened to me in 2012 when I was working for HSBC. And at that point of time, I was managing money of really rich clients. I was a wealth manager then. And I was also doing fairly well in my career. So all the required things, which was that you should have a house, a nice family, a good career, everything was checked. And plus, one was doing quite well in the organization as well. But there was an issue. The issue was that every time I was achieving something bigger in life, instead of giving me happiness, that was giving me restlessness. Restlessness in terms of how to maintain that and go beyond it. And then I looked around and I saw people who had lots of money. I found them also equally restless. So one of the core beliefs that I had when I was growing up, that if your career is sorted and if you have money in your bank, your life is good or actually broken. Because not only in my case, but all my colleagues and the people that I was interacting with had all of it. But it was not necessarily leading to what they call is happiness or peace. In fact, it was only leading one to be more and more anxious and more unsettled. Then the point was, why? Why are we going through what we are going through? So that was the time when I started looking into finding out the real meaning of life. Because you've sort of gone through multiple ups and downs, then what are we doing? What do we do to remain happy? Because ultimately all of us want to be happy. And then I picked up reading a lot of books, a lot of books on philosophy. And also books like Autobiography of Yogi, which most of you would have read. Then Difficulty of Being Good, where there are various shades of life. And then an interesting thing happened. I started sounding very intelligent, but nothing changed inside me. Because I read and read and read and read. And my intelligence became sharper, but internally nothing changed. And that made me further restless. That I know so much. And still, I don't seem to be happy. Something is going wrong somewhere. Because I couldn't even say that I am expecting some sort of a acknowledgement from people, which I was getting. My family loved me a lot. Everything was sorted. I mean, a perfect life, but a very imperfect mind. And then again, and that the reason I call it serendipity is that I exactly got what I wanted. Exactly got what I wanted. But being there for some more time, I understood that it is not giving me what actually I am looking for. Then what do I do now? And then you sort of engage yourself in more and more work and into addiction. And that happened. You need certain amount of dopamine spike all the time. You get used to nicotine and a whole lot of things because you really don't know what more you want in life because everything seems to be coming in. And as luck has it, I got introduced to a group of very sincere seekers of Upanishads. And most of them were very senior neurosurgeons, heart specialists, renowned businessmen. And they were meeting every Sunday, picking up a specific shloka and understanding it in depth under a guidance of a Shankaracharya. And I somehow got introduced to that group of people. And then the real journey started off. Then when I went deeper into Upanishads one by one, because I personally had no inclination to get in there because I was raised in a family where the very simple bottom line was that you work hard, that and you have common sense, life is sorted. You don't need to go into mumbo jumbo stuff. For us, I never came from a background which was having any kind of a ritualistic approach. In fact, it was more like, I mean, we don't really know what's happening there. Let's not get in over there. Science is the only way to look forward to. And then when I started getting deeper into Upanishads, I could find the real purse of wisdom coming out. And that is when the transition started happening. I could see the futility of the life that we are leading, which is, when I'm saying futility, does not mean it's not important. It is important. But exactly where things are going little haywire. Why things are going little haywire. And then somewhere that spark came in, which I said, hey, I have got a specific understanding of Upanishads. Let me try and implement it in my own life. Let me see it really it makes sense or not, or do we need to necessarily, because in Upanishads you go really deep. You talk about Brahman, you talk about Atman, you talk about multiple dimensions, you talk about the reality, the ultimate truth, and then you come to understanding of Maya, Mithya. It's like mumbo jumbo stuff, a lot of things that comes together. But my point was, does it really make sense? Is it going to really help me? And the point was, when we started implementing those subtle aspects in my own personal life, I could see a level of calmness setting in. I could see that I was becoming a lot more calmer. And there was a clarity that was setting out in my mind. But while it was doing so, I was unaware of very one important part. Somewhere a subtle ego was also getting inside me that, look, I understand Upanishads. And with the help of Upanishadic power, I am able to somewhere manage my emotions quite well. And therefore, I can use my intellect or the intelligence to manage my emotions very well. I was completely unaware of that. But nonetheless, using the tenets of Upanishad was really helping me to remain very calm, stable, and that skyrocketed my professional career. Unlike when people think that when you get exposed to the spiritual wisdom, you will become little detached and you will basically move away from the worldly life. But instead, it gave me such a wonderful clarity in terms of how to operate in this complicated life that my career skyrocketed. And the personal life also started becoming very enriching. 2019, I decided that I will quit my job and I will start teaching people Upanishads, because that is something that we can bring it out to the society in a manner which is very simple, which is something that you and I can implement in our life and make it more enriching. However, there was also an understanding that if I quit my job and rely on this to make money and to run my family, then somewhere the essence will be lost. So then idea was not to quit my job, start my own practice of investment banking, and then concentrate a lot on Upanishad. And as life has it, it always gives you surprises. When we started our own business, it took off. And I was hardly left with any time to concentrate on Upanishads. And somewhere I was thinking, hey, the reason I started off and where I am right now, it is just not managing itself. And then after some time, the COVID happened. As a result, the business started going stagnant or downturn. And that is the time I got time to look into Upanishads. But there was a nagging question in my head. The nagging question was that if Upanishad has worked for me, why would anybody believe me? They will say, good for you. But something which was revealed to us, say 5, 10, 15,000 years ago, we don't know when. Why is it even relevant today? Does it even really make sense? And that is the time I decided to go deeper into psychology. So I did a couple of courses from Stanford University and University of Illinois on evolutionary psychology to try and understand how psychology is defining the human mind. And then there was an aha moment, because then I understood psychology is trying to reach in the same place where Upanishad is there. It's just so that their languages are different, their terminologies are different, their approaches different, and they're all trying to speak the same thing. And then the idea was, how do we bring these two concepts together and bring it out to the world? And then we started a journey called Thome, where we curated these two content and started sharing it to people, and we saw tremendous outcome. I mean, there were people who were undergoing, which was not the promise, clinical depression, steep deprivation. They came out of it. But at the same time, I was unaware of the fact that there is a subtle sense of ego which was developing inside me. An ego that I can use my intellect and understanding to ride over my emotions, which I was completely unaware of, because there was a good amount of success one was able to see using Upanishads and psychology. And then, as life has it, I went through certain personal crisis myself in 2021-22 and went into severe depression. Or I might not say severe depression, but a very bad mental crisis. And at that point of time, I understood that emotions can be so strong, that whatever I have learned, whatever I was teaching, was actually not working on me. Because emotions was becoming a lot more, and all my life I was believing that emotion comes in between where you are and where you want to go, because it can distract you from your life. And generally, when we refer a lot to Buddhist teaching and the teaching, a hardcore Upanishadic teaching, they basically put a lot of point on trying to work on your intellect. Do this, do this, do this, do not do this. But none of that was actually working when I was going through severe amount of emotional crisis. And then self-doubt started coming in, that what is happening, why I'm not able to do so. And then there was again a slight amount of transformation happened at that point of time, that what does Upanishad talk about? It talks about that everything that you experience and see is a manifestation of Brahman, or manifestation of God, or the manifestation of life. So as much the success is alive, so is a disappointment. As much you are experiencing good times, that is a manifestation of life, so is going through worse times. As much the intellect is the manifestation of life or manifestation of God, so are emotions the manifestation of life or manifestation of God. As much the pleasure is the manifestation of life and God, so much is pain the manifestation of pleasure of life and God, which goes to say that there is an essence in everything which is happening around me, calling out that this is right and this is not right, or this is the only way to reach to the final truth, may not necessarily be the right one. And when I went through that personal journey, and when I sort of understood that aspect, when I'm saying understanding, it is more than intellectual understanding. There is a sense of that a deeper insight that came in. The sadness did not leave immediately. The sadness continued to be there, but that itself, it was coming from a space of assurance and peace. And that is when the real understanding of Upanishadic wisdom came to me. Because so far it was very structured, very methodical in terms of how it has been explained. But when the emotions got integrated into it, I understood the real meaning of bhakti. Initially, I was thinking that jnanam is the only way to reach God, and then understand the power of bhakti. How emotions can be channelized to go where jnanam can take you. And when the bhakti and emotion was there, and when emotions were going haywire, I went into mantra sadhanas. And when I went into mantra sadhanas, I could see how mantras can actually work directly at your subconscious level and make things work for you. And then I understood, hey, there are so many things, there are so many ways, because it's not only about jnanam, it's not merely about bhakti, but there are tools to work right at your subconscious level. And all this thing was happening when I was undergoing severe amount of pain. And that, again, therefore, I call it that my life is serendipity, because every incident that happens in my life, at that point of time, I could never make sense. Why is it happening? It is maybe 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 1 year down the line when I look back and say, hey, if this event would have not happened, I'm not the person whom I am today. And somewhere when I look myself a little bit away from the entire instances, just as an observer, I could clearly see a story which is simply unfolding by itself. And when I see there is a story which is unfolding, then we really understand that there is something richer, bigger, more intense, which our ego sometimes do not allow it to see, but there is a force that is working all the time. The only thing that we possibly need is a lot of awareness, patience, and surrender. And with that, what is required comes together and takes you where it needs to be taken. That is my life for you. Thank you so much for your patience here.